"Towanda to you," says Idgie Threadgood, a wild-spirited and self-assertive woman in the movie Fried Green Tomatoes. Idgie was a character that took on different identities throughout the course of the movie due to her relationships with her friends and her own actions. She went from Lilbit, awkward tomboy before her brother Buddy died, to a beautiful, strong young woman when she was the best friend to Ruth Jameson, to a feeble and wise old lady when she was a guiding star for Evelyn Couch. Intertwined in all of these names was her self-identification as Towanda, a faceless, self-empowered woman. Although I could never be like Idgie, I do pray that a little of her wisdom was imparted on me, as well as I hope that a little of Towanda, Lilbit, Idgie, and Ninny is in me. My writing is a good place to look for my own strength, not only as an author, but as a person. As I looked through my portfolio on a general scale, and I had difficulty finding a central idea. But then, when I looked more closely at the subliminal messages of all of my essays, I discovered the growth that I made as a writer and as a person was the common theme. Throughout English 1101, I overcame obstacles both in my writing and in my life that forced me to grow as a writer and are showcased through the pieces I choose to include in my portfolio. Buddy always knew how to make Idgie break away from her shell, and even when she was afraid to show her frilly little dress for her sister's wedding, he coaxed her down the stairs by saying, "Come on down, Lilbit. There's no firing squad waiting for you." Idgie first becomes a strong woman when she is young, and Buddy died in a tragic train accident. He referred loving to Idgie as Lilbit, and after he died, the young innocent part of Idgie was also gone, along with that nickname. In the same way, Idgie was sent out to empower herself. I chose a story of overcoming my fear of heights in my biography to tell about how I have developed as a person. I think my strength shows in this piece because one of the most frequent comments I got when we peer-reviewed our multimodal essays was my hook captivated people. In peer review, Austin Kane told me, "I loved the hook. Everyone can relate to overcoming a fear." And this helped me to understand how important identifying with my audience is in an essay. The self-assertion I made to overcome my own fear is just like how Lilbit becomes Idgie. This was the first of many changes in Idgie's personality, and the one that most affects who she became later in life. "I can't even look at my own vagina!" A dramatic exclamation like this is almost always going to guarantee a laugh from an audience, but thematically epitomizes how different Evelyn Couch's life is after the introduction of Ninny Threadgood. Her life changed due to the passing of time and the coming of age during the duration of the movie, but nothing altered who she was like the developing friendship they shared. Ninny used stories from her life to help guide Evelyn through her own trials and tribulations. English 1101, as a beginning for my first semester in college, was a defining milestone in a young adult's life. My life changed dramatically as I attempted to change along with it. Just like the stories Ninny told to help Evelyn to strengthen her self-image, I analyzed one of my classmates' previous essays in order to write my rhetorical analysis essay. Here I was looking for errors in a partner's rhetorical appeal, but as I reached a conclusion, I realized every flaw I found in her essay was an issue I had with my own writing. My teacher also had issues with my logical appeal, which is part of the rhetorical triangle, and when grading my essay she said, "I am not understanding why this paragraph has to do with your thesis at all." As I acknowledged my own issues in my writing, I took responsibility for my growth, just like Evelyn. The last words Ruth utters before she closes her eyes for a final time is, "No, I love your stories. Tell me a story, Idgie." Her tragic and early death from cancer is a heart-wrenching thought for anyone who has ever seen Fried Green Tomatoes. The loss of her best friend causes Idgie to lose a comfort in her life and to adapt in response to that. My transition from high school to college is much like this change in Idgie's life. My image analysis essay is a perfect example of how I overcame obstacles to become a more proficient writer. I barreled through my rough draft with minimal idea of what was really expected of a true analytical essay. Often I merely stated facts like, red is a vivid color that can bring with it many different meanings in its presence or absence. However, through my revision process, I recognized that a list of facts was at best a beginning for analysis. I worked through this and left the comfort of writing explanations behind. Idgie and I both were pushed away from our comfort zones and sent into new beginnings where we were weak in the knees and unsure of what steps to take, but we were made better because of it. When Idgie gets Ruth fresh honey directly from a beehive, Ruth is appalled at first, but then her shock wears off and she assigns Idgie another title saying, "You're just a bee charmer, Idgie Threadgood. That's what you are, a bee charmer." This is the least changeable change in Idgie's identity, where her growth is due only to her own choices. Editing throughout English 1101 helped me to identify areas where I was weak, and this made me grow as a writer. I objectively identified classmates' issues during peer revisions, and I realized all of the issues I was pointing out throughout their essays were the same issues I had. After I recognized these problems in other people's pieces, my self-revision process changed dramatically and my essays gained depth. Iggy added her own layer to her personality when she became the bee charmer, and I added a layer to my writing ability when I learned to use the revision process to my best advantage. There is no quote that could epitomize Ninny Threadgood, because Ninny was an accumulation of Little Bit, Iggy, Tawanda, and the bee charmer. Ninny was exactly what she worked to become all her life. My wild card is a poem that depicts the growth and the love that I have for the place I worked for my first job. Unlike the two previous analytical essays I shared, my poem shows my more creative side. I did a lot of learning and growing when I waitressed. Like every aspect of Ninny's life made her who she became, every part of my portfolio is important to show the strengths I have as a writer and the progression I have made throughout English 1101. The composition of my portfolio shows how changes in your life can affect who you are and how you write. I feel convinced of the work I've done through the semester, and I think my development is evident. The confidence I gained in my writing in English 1101 also transferred to my history class, where I worked hard throughout the semester to add an analytical aspect to my essays. By the end of this calendar year, I have managed to successfully earn an A on my second in-class essay because I used my analytical skills from English. After a meeting with my teaching assistant, I understood that I needed not only to memorize the historical events, but also to understand what kind of historical significance they had. My analytical growth is more beneficial to me than anything else I could have obtained in English 1101 this year, and I hope to work throughout English 1102 to continue to develop my deeper thinking skills and to become an even more critical writer. Although my growth as a writer is no more completed than my growth as a person, I have worked hard through English 1101 to stay true to the writer I am, but also to develop new skills and techniques to make my essay writing more distinctive.